So for the students, are any of them in the classroom, or are you all single people? Kofi, Sean, Ben?
I'm I'm all with Jenny's in here as well, but no one else is.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm not waiting around for people to get here, that you have 2 or 3 people in the room.
Yeah, I'll let you know if anyone else comes in.
I'm going to wait 2 more minutes and then we'll get going. Sean, you said you had one other person in with you?
Yeah, it's Chen Yu.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's on here too, though.
Yeah.
But that's not going to help.
We're both just logged in on our laptops.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll get started now.
Oh,
Today we have Festus Guide. Is going to talk about some real-world industrial hygiene, dealing with a chemical facility, I believe. I'll let him explain that a little bit more, and I'll turn it over to him now.
all right. Thank you so much. Good morning on this side because I'm in the central zone, so it's still 11 o'clock over here. So good afternoon over there. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me for this presentation. I'm so excited to be here. So even if this is just bachelor, my name is Festus, Jade, as earlier I was introduced. I'm the Region 1 Industrial Hygiene supervisor. I manage 5 different sites. I'm working with Westlake Corporation, and where I oversee 5 facilities. And then, in addition to working in Westlake, and I also have a consulting firm that kind of operate on a part-time basis. And I do several type of industrial related activities and also training as well. While I was in grad school, I remember thinking about the purpose of actually going back to school to get another master's, which I did get in a master in IH. Among several questions I've asked myself prior to this application is why? Because we are oftentimes, when I was walking the field, we're just told to go out there get some samples, right? We really don't know why we do most of this stuff. So going back to school to get my master's was able to answer some of these questions for me. The simple reason we do many things we did in the field. I'm a technical person. I started as a mechanical engineer. Then I have a degree in mechanical engineer in Nigeria. Also a degree here in General State, mechanical engineer. I have a bachelor's in occupational health and safety. I also have a bachelor in psychology, University of Houston. I have a master's degree in supply chain and engineering management in University of Wisconsin, and then another master in IH in Montana Tech. I remember not thinking that industrial hygiene was all about formulas, right? And standard sampling method, right? And then why that can be true to some extent. Step into this field, I realized there's a big difference between knowing the theories and apply these in a real world situation. So as Westlake, which we're going to be looking at the practical, experience that I've learned in Westlake, and then prior to Westlake, we're able to dive into some of these experience. So I walk everything from noise to solvent, to heat stress, ergonomics, radiation, confined spaces, asbestos, lead, hazard communication, respiratory protection, hearing conservation, what have you. So I've done it all. I have the opportunity to have worked in the downstream, the upstream, and the midstream of in the oil and gas. So today, I want to share a few real stories from my experience, and then we'll talk about what works and then what didn't, and then give you a sense of what industrial looks like in practice. And my goal is to be able to bridge the gap between what you're learning now and what you actually face when you step into the field. So, with that being said, by my introduction, the reason why I'm doing industrial hygiene today, you can see right there, my passions for industrial hygiene stem from a lifelong commitment to safeguarding lives and through proactive hazard identification and the control. So I choose industrial hygiene because every life protected is a victory for me. So in the field, I take it very, very personal. When it comes to trying to protect the health of every workers, I take it personal. I remember getting into my current job, and then I already have the question of some of the stuff I'm going to be solving. Talking to the vice president, I was able to tell him that I want to resolve the noise issue on this site, and also anything that involve any confined space issue. And then I was passionate about that because those are some of the stuff that people tends to be exposed to without realizing it until they have built up this cumulative effect over the years, and then they begin to see those effects, and then at that time it is irreversible, right? So I was proactive enough to be able to bring my knowledge and my expertise of what I've learned so far in the field to make a lot of changes. So we're going to go into some of that. And then to this point, I would say what industrial looks like in practice. Being in school, I know you've seen the definition, the textbook definition of industrial hygiene, from AIHA. However, in the real world, right, the picture in the real world is what you're going to be looking at. You're looking at several towers that is just very tall, 150, 300 feet high from the ground. You're seeing drums, you're seeing tank, you're seeing storage tank, you're seeing compressor, you're seeing smokes everywhere. Then, at that point, you begin to wonder, what does industrial hygiene have to do here? And then you'll be looking at several people that's working, in the facilities, right? So, and then you begin to wonder, this is real world. It's really different from the classroom, right? But the core thing, that I'm able to kind of integrate from my knowledge in school, from this definition here on my left, is to be able to use the anticipation, the recognition, evaluation, the control, and confirmation, which is the core fundamental of industrial hygiene. And these you have to, at some point, you may not be able to use it, concurrently, but you will use it on a daily basis if you are involved in a lot of projects. We shall list us to these, and then if you look in the field, hazards are rare as neat as what you're going to be seeing in the textbook, right? You're in the field, you're seeing the smoke, noise everywhere, the pump is going off, compressor is going off, you have two different sources at the same time, running at the same time. Then you have to be able to apply some of the knowledge that you've learned in school to be able to bring some hazard control to help the facilities, right? They and then these hazard they overlaps, right? They overlaps doing change by shift. Workers may not report them until it gets very seriously. I'm the type I like to coach a lot. I like to talk because which is some of stuff that I've learned while I was studying psychology. I like to interact with people who are able to share knowledge. I have to give them why they have to do what they're doing and why we as an IH have to protect them, right? So I do that a lot, and these are the things you will find yourself doing most often. And sometimes you might tell people in the field that the hazard has been exposed to, and then you may hear, "Oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. What is it going to change?" Right? So 30 years I was not working here, right? Now I'm very passionate about you having a good, healthy life and able to relate to your family, right? My best big piece about industrial hygiene is when I'm coaching people, is to able to tell them that I don't really put more emphasis on what they can smell right now. The accurate health effect of any exposure right now, because that within 24 hours you should be able to recover. But what about the cumulative effect, the chronic effect that you can change because you've been exposed a dose every day at a time, every week, every month, every year, pending the time that person is working within that facility, right? So you can look at that cumulative effect. At that point, it is it's irreversible. So I have to take it very personal to them for them to see that I take their health very seriously. So if I cannot protect one person, that means I have failed, as an industrial agent, right? I have failed, and that's the same way I kind of train my team as well, and that's what we've been doing for this long, since 2021 that I've been in Westlake. And prior to that, this is what I do. And then, so we're going to look at some of these hazards that we'll face. I have faced Westlake, for example. Before that, I will just give you a little bit overview of Westlake. Westlake Corporation is a chemical organization, right? So we're a global industry leader in petrochemical, polymer, and then building products. So Westlake is made up of two segments. We have the petrochemical segment, and we also have the building material, which is the HEAP. We call that the HEAP, the housing and infrastructure products, segment. We are headquartered in Houston, and then we have over 16,000 employees worldwide. We operate in olefin and vinyl segments. We're one of the largest U.S. producer of low density polyethylene. We also have product that support. Our product goes to support the healthcare, the automotive, construction, and then consumer products. So anywhere that you see a lot of polymer, like in Walmart, in all of the grocery store, is we actually, those are some of our clients as well. Our strong presence is in Louisiana, which happen to be the region I oversee. I have 4 sites in Louisiana area, and then 1 in Longview, Texas, to make the 5th facility, and that's the biggest region globally, in Westlake. And then we offer innovative products like green vein PVC, and which are made with renewable energy. And then when you look at Westlake, right? Westlake has told the experience that I've seen I've experienced in Westlake. All of the hazard that you will see, you will observe anywhere within the industrial settings. We have it all. We have all the physical hazard, chemical hazard, even some that I've not even experienced before prior to coming to Westlake. I was able to have that experience of working with that chemical in Westlake. biological hazard, we have a lot of economic hazard, and then psychosocial hazard as well. So these kind of really help me to be able to bring the expertise of all the various places I've worked before, because prior to Westlake, I've worked at Lyndale, ExxonMobil, Chevron Phillips, and then some part of Motiva, around, and the international as well. All right, so we'll go into these, and then we have two pictures here, and these are real pictures. These are real pictures, that we have in the field, and these are the part of activities, that we do on a daily basis. I don't know if any of you have heard about, turnaround activities. So turnaround activities are when the unit is shut down to perform maintenance activities, on the unit and all the equipment. Sometimes because they've been running that instrument, the pump or compressor for a long time, for many, many years, and then it's overdue for maintenance. So the unit have to be shut down completely for them to turn all the equipment around through maintenance, right? Sometimes they will have to replace the piping, replace some pump, compressor, and then at that time we have several contractors, that comes on site, several of them. However, if you happen to be in this type of situation as an IH, you have to be within the turnaround group to pre-plan the turnaround. You have to give them what the expectation is based on the unit that the unit that is going down. So I'm just going to just say maybe like a ethylene unit, right? So you have to know all the chemicals that is associated within that unit and able to identify all those chemicals and see which of the vessel they're going to enter, right? And then you have to plan and see what proactive measure do you have to put in place that nobody, during the line breaking or maybe confined space entry, nobody's been exposed to those chemicals. And then you also have to write a lot of protocols, to the turnaround management, how to clean the vessel, the confined space before an entry is going to make. And also you will be planning the type of PPE they're going to be, needed to perform work in every area, right? So turnaround is a very busiest, time, and sometimes it depends on how big the unit is. ARH is always involved from start to finish, right? And then during the turnaround, what we normally do is, as an IH, during the pre-planning, we already give them all our expectation. And then during the turnaround, then we have to also plan our turnaround sampling strategy, right? So we take sample. If any of the employee, our Westlake employee is going to be involved with that turnaround, we have to take some measurement, right? We have to take some sampling, some personal sample, some area sample within the area. So we know that, okay, whoever is working within a certain area, whatever they are doing is not exposing other people that's not working within that area. Then how do you control? So we begin to measure to see, do we need a barricade? Do we need some enclosure? If welding is going to be performed, what type of PP, they're going to be needed based on the activities that's going to be, happening within the turnaround. But the most important thing for RH, you have to be very, very involved with it. And then after you are involved with it, you collected data. And what do you do with those data? Right? What do you do with the data? So sometimes I kind of shift, from being just a specialist, to be a scientist, to be an engineer. I kind of just switch, back and forth to be able to see, and it's based on the group I'm on. right? That can able to relate, to any one of them. So this type of activities is the busiest period that we have, mostly in the chemical industry. And then because we don't want to expose anybody, we don't want any chemicals to go in the stormwater system, and then we try to protect the health of everybody, the contractor and then the company, to go home, safe, the same way they arrive on our sites. And then sometimes it's between 2 weeks to 3 months, max, depending on the damages, that the units are sustained over the years, right? So it's the busiest period that we have in the chemical industry. And then the other picture that you will see on your right is another restructuring that is done on our site. It's a huge tank, a caustic tank that is being resurfaced. And then caustic, as you know, before anybody can go into the caustic, you have to be able to know what the SDS says, right? You review the SDS, and you review the PPE that's required. You reviewing the decontamination procedure, because IH does write all those programs. And then now you now begin to ask what type of activities they will be doing inside this tank. Are they going to be working outside the tank, or they're going to be working inside the tank? Then what type of monitoring is going to be conducted, during each activities, right? It's just like you're breaking down the activity that's going to perform into each steps and able to identify what is the highest involvement in each step from start to finish. Like you can see in the picture, this is the picture was taken when they're welding on the surfaces, right? Now, with that, you want to question, right, what type of welding is going to be performed? What is the type of rod that is needed to perform that welding? What is the base plate made of, right? And then how long is going to take them, at every shift to perform whatever activity they're going to be performing. Then you can be able to now plan, okay, do I need to take some air sample, or do I just need to put engineering control in place like ventilation, right? So this type of project, you can see how big, the structure of that tank is. So how many ventilation, corpus door fan, air on that's going to be needed to make sure that this space have adequate ventilation for them to be able to perform the hard work that is performed. So IH get involved in that. And then after you have collected this data, what do you do with the data? How do you communicate this data to the management so they can see that we are actually protecting people, that is working our site, and we're also protecting our employee as well. So what does this, if you also ask them question, what does this data that you have collected, what does it mean? Right? So that's the area that the graduate people comes in to be able to analyze this data further, right? Currently I'm doing some trend analysis, which I'm using a lot of statistical model, to come to a resolution if more sampling is needed after 3 years of collection of data. Then I have to translate that, into what the management is going to understand. Are we trending, upward, or are we going down, right? So what is the health concern based on the data that is collected, right? So these are all the, activities, that we do in the field as an IH. And then you also evaluating, just like in either of these pictures here, you evaluating, okay, what type of hydrocarbons do we have on site? What is the PEL or the OEL exposure limit of the chemical of concern? Then do you have the right PPE to protect every employee that is working within that turnaround on the maintenance group, right? What about heat stress, right? Because most of our turnaround is done during the summer months, right? So what is the heat concern, right? So do you have instruments to be able to do continuous monitoring on the on heat stress? Do you have to do a personal monitoring for heat stress, or you just have to do area monitoring? So do you know what the standard set? Is the company in compliance with the standard? Do we have the cool down station that is required? What is the temperature set for that day? What's the relative humidity? So you are asking all these questions, right? You are now analyzing the data to be able to help the management team to be able to have a successive or turnaround or a successful project at the end of the day, right? And right here, I think these pictures that you're seeing here is the training that refresher training that I did. I conducted with my team because when I first got to Westlake, I kind of just watched my team on how they are performing their job, and then what do they know, right? So I can able to step in and see, okay, if there's some areas they're weak, I can able to coach them and help them within that area, right? So I watched them for a year, and then the following year I was able to come up with a training manual, to train on my team. And this is some of the instruments that we have in our IH lab, and I went through every one of the instruments to perform the training with my team. So this just to show you. So when you are conducting exposure assessment, right, you have to be able to choose the right instrument that is meant for that hazard or comment or complaint that you're trying to resolve. Here in the picture, I can see the velocicar, I can see the indoor air quality instrument, I see the noise, the sound level meter, I see the heat stress meter, I see some of the pumps, noise dosimeter, and I see a mode sampling pump as well, right? So you have to be able to know the right instrument to use for a right, for any situation that arises. And then and the importance method that you have to take to be able to do what was required, right? And then after you have collected this data, right, how do you interpret this data? Because that is very, very important, right? And then some of the technicians and some specialists may not know how to interpret data, right? So that is why the graduate, experts, comes in, because they have done a lot of feasibility study, a lot of statistical models, so they can able to interpret some of those data, which I was able to do with some of the data we have collected over the years, right? To see is it adequate for where we're trying to go, and then I'm able to interpret that to the employee that you collected the data from, right? And then after you collected the data, what do you do with this data? Data is very, very important, right? Because, for example, I'll tell you my experience. Like when I get there, I started earlier telling you that I spoke to the vice president, and I was trying to make changes with our noise and then ventilation, in the confined space, because I know over the years in my experience, those has been some of the common issue I have faced. And then me coming to Westlake, I want to see where we are, as present, and then where I want the company to get to. And then without no doubt, I was able to, collect some data, and I find out that it's not enough data to be able to protect, people. I wrote the program, and begin to implement. However, when you are implementing this change, there will be a lot of resistance, from management because, and then also from the people that you're working with because they've been doing that task, that job, that project in a certain way for a longer period of time. But you just coming in just like that, you just want to change it just like that, and you're going to have a lot of resistance. So you just have to kind of just calm down, gather your data, because without your data, you don't have any justification to make any changes. So this is what I am able to achieve because I love data. I love data. So collecting most of those data able to help me to make a lot of changes. Currently, this just happened. I think yesterday, and I've been pushing for these changes. To remove half face. Yeah, to remove half face from being used in our facilities. However, there's been resistance for the past 3 years. Right, I've suggested these changes, but there has been a lot of resistance. But what did I do? I didn't give up. Right, that gave me enough time to keep collecting my data. I collected data, and I was able to go in front of the management this year to show them the trend, for our 3 years data, when the respiratory requirement was implemented, and then what was the changes over time, over the years, and then when the support of management was initiated, so they can able to see the changes. Is the changes increasing? Are we seeing any reduction in our overexposure, or there is no changes? But like to my experience, there's a lot of changes when we use the respiratory protection that I recommended. Right, we're able to cut our year. This year, we're able to cut it by 50%, even though I set the goal to be 20%. However, because of a lot of pushing, a lot of persuasion, a lot of coaching, creating a lot of campaign, makes me able to get to 50%. But my expectation was 20%. That was the target goal for me for this year. But I was able to reach 50%. So presenting that to the leadership, they saw all this what I've achieved within 3 years, and they can see the data, they see the trend, and now they see numbers, right? Because management is about numbers. You can't just go in front of the management and tell them you want to make changes, and then they're going to ask you some of these questions, right? They'll ask you all these questions. So if you don't have the data to back it up, it's just a waste of time, right? It's a waste of time. That changes will not go nowhere. It just go down in the trash, right? So you will see a lot of resistance from upper management, right? But you have to collect data to make your justification. If you don't do that, and then the data that you collected, you have to be able to interpret it well for them to understand. So you can see that the science is by collecting data. The communication and how you communicate that data to the management, to the people on site, plant-wide, is the hard part of it. So that's why you see that RH is as much as hard as science, right? So it's very, very important, for what you guys, are doing right now. It's very, very important, and then we need every one of you, to be with the team. All right, so and then for management to be able to accept what you've given, you have to build trust, right? You have to build trust. That is very, very important. And how do you build trust, right? When you're making the changes, make sure you have all your facts right. Yeah, your fat has to be 100%. It is okay, that if you have plus or minus, sometime, but make sure that what you presenting, you have something to back it up, right? So then when they begin to you presented them into, they were able to develop trust from you, right? They will trust you based on your changes that you are presenting to them, right? Because every company is about profit, right? If your changing is not bringing in a strategic plan for them to make more money or reduce waste, it is it's not going to go nowhere, right? So you have to be able to put that into your plan as well. So that's where the hard part of it, actually comes in. All right, so like everything that I've said, right? It's not everything that we implemented that works. Sometimes we will fail, right? And then when you fail, are you able to accept, accountability that what you did, you fail and able to resolve it, from there, right? There's no blame, there's no throwing of blame game, when it comes to protecting human, right? Because the health of the people is in our hands, right? And like I said, for me, I take it very, very personal. I take it very personal, and then because I want to go home and able to sleep well without thinking that the recommendation I have suggested, or made within the process that is inadequate. So when I go home, I can sleep. So that's why I take time to make my final recommendation, do a lot of research, to make sure I'm appropriately giving them the right control that is needed. So the right control, for me is I put everybody in my shoe. Like, what if I'm the one that's on the other side, doing the job? Will I use that PPE? Will I able to implement that control? So I do that. So if it's adequate for me, definitely it's going to be adequate for them. So I put myself in the shoe, right? So and as on the left, if you look at, this is some of the stuff that we have seen does work. Engineering control most of the time. I've done several calculations and several training on ventilation, implementation of ventilation control, exhaust equipment, and then enclosure design to reduce airborne contaminants. A lot of high-age sampling equipment. I've bought several sampling equipment since I've joined Westlake, and then I bought them because based on the complaints, right, that arises, right? Like the indoor quality air instrument, the mold sampling pump that I bought. When I got there, they didn't have it, right? But people have been complaining, but the people that were there before, they don't know what to do because they are not knowledgeable, on how to control mold, on what to do when there's complaint about mold. But me, I'm licensed in the state of Texas. I've collected mold everywhere. I've designed ventilation. So it was easy for me to be able to give them the right recommendation that is needed and buy the right tools that we need to kind of control, collect some data to prove to the management or to their leadership that they need to fix some leak, they need to change the roof, they need to clean the ventilation system, the duct system, or they need to periodically do preventive maintenance on the duct system and stuff like that. So if you don't have the right instrument, it's going to be hard for you to make the right recommendation, right? Because how do you put it down? And then respiratory protection program, that certainly works, and I just explained that to you with the reduction I was able to have after implementing a respiratory protection program, and then I was able to reduce our exposure by 50%. ergonomics program. There's work. This month for us in Westlake, especially in my region, is ergonomics awareness month, right? The whole of October. So we bring in ergonomics specialists, from chiropractors to holistic doctors, to come on our site to kind of do, lunch and learn or do some training, for our employee. So we do that, every year. Now we started last year, and this year we started again every October. So we're doing it right now. And then MOC, yeah, I created recently. I started in 2022, anyways, to make a lot of changes with asbestos, lead, and then crystalline silica, standard. Because in my past experience, I've done some of those stuff in the field. When I got here, it's not there's a lot of gap, right? And I'm trying to close the gap. So it took me 3 years to be able to pass this through from the management. 3 years, But so anytime you're making any changes in a chemical plant, you have to have a management of change. You have to create an MOC, right? Create an MOC, and then you follow through with the MOC, and then put all the required paperwork that's needed to close the MOC. Then you can initiate the changes. So MOC is very, very needed. And then some of the stuff that does not work, right? Sometimes we implement training, right? Training retention. I mean, sometimes you're dealing with older workforce, right? It's hard sometimes to retain information, right? So you have to continuously, giving them training. Sometimes they may not remember. Why? It's just because they just tired of sitting in that class, for 8 hours, from morning to night. So they're just doing it just because they have to be there, right? So they're not really paying attention, right? So when you're training somebody that's not paying attention, how do you think that's going to translate that information that you're giving to them in the field, right? So that's already a zero right there, right? So, but we see that a lot. We see that a lot after giving them training, and then you go in the field later on, you ask them the question, they can remember, right? They can remember, right? And then administrative control, I mean, a lot of that, there's a lot of inconsistency, with administrative control. And then the best part of it is the behavioral based safety, right? You cannot deal with every individual the same way because everybody have different trait, right? Then you have to deal with individual base, right? So that's the only way you can be successful. If you're going to work in the plant and they want to over generalize everything to everybody on the site, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because these people have been stick to one way of safety culture for a long time, right? So now you have to work it with that behavior individually. So if you just want to work with that, only by initiating a lot of standard and procedures, that would be a waste of time. So there's a lot of failures of some of the stuff that we've done, and these are some of the areas. And then as we work in the field, we'll try to improve on them on a daily, on a yearly basis as well. All right, so this is just, I will talk about this. This is some of the programs that we oversee: restorative protection, area conservation, age stress, legionella, radiation, ergonomics, reproductive health. And then there's several of them that I didn't put on this, right? Okay, like I said earlier, what we do is more than just collecting samples, right? It's beyond science, right? Yes, we learn all the science and everything in the field, in school. But right now you have to deal with real people. And then if you have a poor way of communicating to people, that you're going to have issue, working in the field. I learned that a whole lot, right? So you have to know how to communicate, to communicate to people in the field and to the workers and also to the leadership. Because sometimes you might communicate any changes, or maybe your data to the workers. Remember, you as a PhD student or a master's degree holder going into the field, you want to tell some people that work in the field, like the operators, some engineering technologies, terminologies, right? They may not understand what you're saying, To them, it's just jargons, right? So you have to be able to identify your audience, right? To be able to bring down to their level, So that's how you can able to communicate, and then they will able to trust you because now they understand what you're saying. You're on the same level with them. But if you're just there and telling them all these trajectory, trend analysis, statistic analysis, they don't understand that. So you have to bring to their level. And then when you bring this data, like I've said before, how can you be trusted, with that data, right? So you have to be, very factual as you can, right? Gather your data, do a lot of benchmarking, with networking, people that you've met in the field, in other companies, do a lot of brainstorming, with some of the project group in your company or outside your company, So when you gather all this data all around you, because IH is about information gathering, right? When you're doing your assessment, you're collecting data. You gather information. So and your information is not limited to where you're working, to only your company, right? So that means you have to kind of just spread your wings, right? Go to some of your friends that's working in other companies. How are they doing this stuff, right? I remember recently when I was making changes about our lead procedure, I have to consult some of my friends in ExxonMobil, some of my friends in Landell, some of my friends in Chevron Phillips, because my leadership are not ready to listen to me. So I have to collect all this data, gather all this data. That is the fact. This is what we're doing. This is where the industrial average is. This is the level that we are. So they can see the gap. So when you bring all this fact and you show them that we're way below the average, then they will listen to you, right? They will listen to you, right? So, and HIH is your social responsibility, right? I take this very, very serious. The citizenship social responsibility, IH, we're one of them, right? You have to protect the people you work with and then the environment. They have to trust your judgment. Connection, you connect with people, right, individually, right? If not, whatever changes that you're bringing in, nobody's going to accept it. And do you have integrity? With the work that you do you have integrity, right? And then you have to be very transparent as well. And then they have to unreliable. When you give any recommendation, why you trusted, then you have the honesty and integrity. You have to be reliable with it, right? So these are very, very important. They are beyond the science, right? Their heart, is what you do on a daily basis, So your responsibility is beyond just collecting samples, right? You have to be the change. And to be the change, you have to have some of this quality. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up right quick, and then just like this, just an example that I want to give is part of what we do. You have a maintenance group that's going in the confined space, and then one of them is reporting an odor issue. As an IH, what do you do? What do you do? So if you don't know the type of instrument that you're going to use, you don't know the type of chemical they're working with, that's inside the confined space, it's going to be hard for you, right? And if you fail once, within this stuff, it just makes the leadership, the workers, to doubt you beyond that, right? So that's why you have to be very knowledgeable, of any project. Do your research, read literature if you have to read literature. You have to be on top of your game, when you have to deal with situations like this, so because you don't want to assume anything, you don't want to assume, you want to give the fact, that if anybody, has somebody outside, they can back you up of the judgment that you have made, right? So the takeaway from these, the three takeaways I'm going to give, us is, as an high age industrial hygiene, with this, our job is to protect people from exposure to any of those hazards I've mentioned previously. And then when you know your hazard, then the next thing is for you to collect the data, which we'll talk about. The data is based on the people, right? Because your data, you know the hazard, you know the data, so then you can able to now help the people that you are working with, right? So if you don't know this, how to interpret your data, you don't know how to determine or identify the hazard that you are working with, it's going to be hard for you to protect the people you're working with. So you just expose, people to a lot of things because, you're not competent in the two previous, the hazard and the data, right? So that's going to be very, very important. So you have to kind of look into this. All right. So with that being said, these ends our seminar. Thank you so much. So do you have any question for me?
Hello, I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So when you work with multiple departments that I would imagine have shipping priorities, my previous experience, I've found it frustrating before where different, I feel like you can be really set up sometimes to have minimal resources or manpower to really address everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there's a lot of people that they call you. It's like they want your input now. They want you in on these different meetings now. And so I'm kind of curious, what's your approach to maybe handling pressures like that? How do you go about prioritizing a situation like that where maybe you're needed everywhere? And, I would imagine oil and gas is pretty rigorous based on kind of your presentation there. So
it is. I can tell you that it is, right? It's kind of really hard, but you have to prioritize which one has the highest priority, right? Because let's just say you have some group that is working in a confined space. Confined space takes priority for everything because you can go inside the confined space, and then if that space is not evaluated very well, it can cause some disastrous stuff, right? So that takes a priority, right? Other than somebody that is just say, oh, I want you to look at this procedure, right? So you prioritize based what is the risk level of all those stuff that is coming to you.
What kind of training have you needed to help out with confined space work and assess the ventilation?
Well, for me, before I started this, I told you that, I have 2 degree in mechanical engineering, right? So, and I use that a lot, I've learned a lot of fluid mechanics, right? Which is basically ventilation, right? It's basically ventilation for me. So that kind of really helped me. And then when I was doing my master's too, I studied, I take some courses, advanced industrial ventilation, right? So all these stuff like confined space, I've done several training and then several training apart from going to having a degree too. So it's what I took for myself, that, this is what I want to do. And in this area, I want to be knowledgeable in that. I will take extra courses on that. That's not, I don't really have any hobby like that I do. For example, if I'm going to school and then during my break, I'm taking a 3 month course of confined space or 3 month course of hazard recognition. So I've done several of those certifications in addition to having a degree as well. So that kind of really helped me, right? Because, and I also have a degree in occupational health and safety as well. So I'm kind of all rounded with this, and I have a master's in industrial hygiene. So all those extra stuff kind of really helped me to be knowledgeable on this. And also too, some of the stuff that you asked, we have procedure for all of them. So each of them have procedure, and we have a training that we have created for that procedure for you to understand. Right?
If you could do school over again, what do you think would be the thing that you would focus on the most?
Oh, for me, if I have to, you say if I have to go back to school, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you're going through getting your degree and what you know now, what would be your focus?
It will be, being a medical doctor. Because, that was my goal when I was young, but I end up doing engineering, and then now I'm industrial hygiene. So that's the kind of bring me back to what I kind of want to do, because sometimes I act like a medical doctor in the field, because you have to know a lot of anatomy and physiology, a lot of toxicology, when you're dealing with these chemicals, to see, if somebody's exposed with these chemicals, how does they affect, which target organ does this chemical affect? So you have to know all that. So sometimes I have like a medical doctor, I have like an engineer, so I can able to transition from one profession to another, because I have those degrees, right? So that kind of really helped me, right? So, but I love Hygiene, because right now I'm able to put all this thing that I've learned so far in the past to put in Hygiene, and it helps me, right? The engineering helped me, the psychology helped me, the occupational health and health helped me, and I have a degree in industrial hygiene. So everything helps me to be knowledgeable in all this stuff, all these areas. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I feel like I'm hoarding all the questions though, so sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's cool. It's cool. I'm here.
Hobbies?
Okay, Festus,
Hey, Kofi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, nice meeting you again.
Following up with your answers, I want to find out whether you dealt with any emergency first aid or CPR in any of your practice, because I've been talking to my professors why we are not incorporating first aid and CPR as part of industrial hygiene training, because maybe some of the workers at any point in time might have some emergencies that health professionals might not be immediately be available.
Yeah.
And probably we should be able to do something to sustain them so that they will not pass on. So I'm thinking how important, or whether you've encountered some of these events in terms of handling emergencies of your staff.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. Really, I have not, involved with conducting CPR. However, if you're working in the HSE team, you will be trained. You'll be trained for CPR, first aid, and everything. However, we have a dedicated team that responds to those type of incidents, which is our emergency response team. They are trained, they're asthma trained. That is their job, to do any rescue. They are always on site 24/7. So that deals with that. However, I am trained to do it. Remember I said, because I,